Hey guys, Dave here. Welcome to the Centurions Review, the punk rock band of war game review institutions. I am doing a free game this time. You can download this off Board Game Geek. We'll be doing a playthrough and a short review. The name of the game is 1972 The Lost Phantom by Mike Haim. It's for one player. It's a solitaire game. It says complexity medium. I disagree. I say complexity is simple, which is good. And it says time is 30 to 60 minutes. I guess that's about right. Let's take a look at what comes with. This is the player map and player board. Here's the rules. Let me zoom out, or I guess I am all the way zoomed out. Rules are 2 pages, and then it has some tables here for range of events for when you're range 0 through 4 from your starting space, range 5 through 9, or 10 through 15. So let's go over how the game works before we start playing it. First phase is mapping. You roll a dice, and if you see here, you get these symbols that you'll put on the map. The symbols are that one if it's village, swamp, hills, jungle, field, and paddy. And if you ever get into a situation where you have to move into a hex where it hasn't been mapped yet, you just make it a jungle, and we'll be starting in this hex. The second phase, you roll 2 dice. You need 9 dice to play the game, one of them of a different color. You roll for your encounter first. After you roll you roll the first dice, which will be the 10s, and the second, that will be the 1. So he got 15 there. So if he's range 0 through 4, nothing happened. If something did happen, let's say you had like a 14, then you'll go through the range 0 through 4, 11 through 14, a bad thing would happen. Then you'd get a flash flood. And you could choose this by retreating to the previous hex or lose 2 endurance. We'll go over what endurance means in a minute. And then you do dice allocation. So before we get into that, you start the game with 6 proximity. Proximity means how far away the NVA are. If you get to 0 proximity, the NVA capture you and you lose. Endurance, you start with 6 too. That means that you use 6 dice per turn, so you want endurance as high as possible also. And then you have health. If health starts at 6, if it goes to 0, you are dead, so you lose. So the dice allocation, you would put them here. So if you wanted to allocate 3 to move, 1 to stealth, and 2 to rest, you would put them there. And then on your move phase, you would roll these 3 dice that you allocated. And since you would be starting here on swamp, that means in order to move, you'd have to roll a 4 or greater. But here's the deal. You roll the 3 dice. If the one you choose one of them. So if you chose the 6, which you're not going to do unless you have to, you would take a wound, but you would still move. So 6s are very bad in this game. You want to avoid 6s. Even though they make you successful, you take, I don't know, like a light wound, which does 1 damage to your health. And then stealth, you're rolling stealth to change your proximity. So if on this one you need a 4 or greater, so if you got a 4 or greater, your proximity will go up 1. It's at 6, which is the highest, so it wouldn't. But if it was at 5, it would go up to 6. Or if it was at 5 and you failed, you would go down to 4. Or if you rolled a 6, it would go up, but then you would take a wound. So like I said, 6s are very bad in this game. And the last one is rest. That changes your endurance, which can go up or down. Remember, endurance is the amount of dice you get per turn, but it's the same story. If you roll a 6, then your health goes down. That's the basic game. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get to this river to escape, or if you get lucky, you'll get a flare gun, and on your next turn, you'll move into a field space, and then you can force a encounter, and the encounter you would force is the Huey gunship. In which case, you'd shoot the flare gun, and it would signal the slick to pick you up and win. So that's how when I win, it's usually because the helicopter picks me up. So let's start the game now. I'm going to use this little thing to be me. Normally, you're supposed to use colored pencils to show your movement, but I just use this. Alright, let's start the first turn. Normally you would start with mapping, but none of our adjacent squares need to be mapped, so we go to the encounter phase. And the encounter phase, I should actually be using 2 colored dice, but the first one will be the 10, so I get a 42. And as you see here, there's nothing at 42 for range 0 through 4, so there's no event. So the next is dice allocation. I like to put 3 and move. I forgot to mention with stealth, if you did move from your original location when you roll for stealth, you get to re-roll one of the dice if you didn't like it. So I'll put 1 in stealth. And I'll put 2 in rest. Alright, so now we go to the movement phase. So I roll 3 dice, and I'm currently on swamp, so I need a 4. So I got a 4 so I can move. I'll move to the jungle. I like the jungle. I like the stats. It gives you 4, 3, and 4. That's my favorite area to be in. And then we'll go for stealth. Roll this. And it's a 6, which would be successful, but I get to roll again if I wish, because I started in a different hex. I'm gonna, because I don't feel like losing any health already. So my proximity goes down, so the NVA is a little bit closer. Oh, and I forgot to mention phase 7, which is the last part of the turn. You can journal each turn and write like a bunch of fluff about what happened if you wish, but we're not going to do that for this example game. And then we'll do our rest phase. 5 is successful, so endurance would go up, but it's at max, so we're good. Alright, turn number 2, phase 1 mapping. A roll of 4. And when you map, you do this one at the northernmost hex, then this one, then this one. If there's only like 2 to map, you just do the first 2 and not the third one. So the first one is a field. And then we get my favorite, the jungle. Well, actually, it's not my favorite. Well, yeah, I think it is. And then hill. I always avoid hills. Alright, so that's done. Let's do the encounter. We got a 56. Oh, that is a... Let's see what happens. On range 0 through 4 for 56. Empty hut. It appears that this hut has been abandoned. The burn marks and bullet holes present this as another casualty of war. You repurpose the mucin-like material on the wall into a bandage. A rusty machete hanging from the hook near the door seems to be the only salvageable gear. Gain machete. As a quiet respite, gain 1 endurance. I believe you just pick one of them. So I'm going to gain the machete. Alright. Okay. Actually, I made a mistake there. I could do all 3 of those because there's no ore. So I'll gain 2 health. I don't need the health. And as the other one, I'd gain 1 endurance. Don't need it. So, but anyhow, let's continue with the game. So now we go to dice allocation. So I'll allocate 3 to movement. I'll allocate 0 to stealth because I'm not worried about my endurance right now, and 3 to rest. Alright, so let's try and move. We are currently in jungle. So the 4 I will pick that will allow us to move. So we're in jungle now. And then we will fail stealth, so that will change proximity, so that will go to 4. Obviously, I'm not going to let it get too low, but... Alright, now let's do our rest. We get a 4, which passes. That's the one I'll keep. Alright, so now we can do the next turn. So we roll for mapping, and we get a 6. So we'll start with rice paddy. Village. Village is a good one. When you enter the village, you look at a event table to see what happens. You always move out of the village, but sometimes good things happen. Sometimes bad things happen, but you always get a free move, so that's good. Alright, so we've mapped, so now let's do an encounter. We get a 46. Anything happen if nothing happens on 46? So now we allocate, so I'll put 3 in movement and 3 in rest. So the 4 will let us move. So instantly when we move there, we got to check a chart to see what happens. Alright, here's the village chart. So we roll 2 dice, and I get a total of 10. On a 10, it's peaceful. The villagers offer you sanctuary, gain 2 endurance, discard your rest dice, then move to any adjacent mapped hex. Alright, so my rest dice get discarded, and I move to that hex, and I have to make it a jungle because it's not marked. Alright, so here's the problem with the game. It doesn't say, does my turn just immediately end then, or what? So I'm going to assume it doesn't immediately end, so we go to the stealth phase, which I fail, so that goes down to 3. And then remember it told me to throw out my rest dice, so I guess I fail resting too, so endurance goes down to 5. It doesn't really say if the turn ends then or not, so whatever, I guess it's one of those cases where you just do what you think is best. Alright, so now we start a new turn, and we go to mapping and we get a 6 again. Always start with the northernmost hex. So that's a rice paddy. Ooh, we get another town. I like towns. Or village, whatever you want to call it. And then another rice paddy. Okay, so do our encounter before we do anything. We get a 45, and we're at range 5 through 9. Nothing happens there. So we'll do our dice allocation. I will do 3 for movement and 3 for rest. This will be the last time I skip stealth. So let's try to move to this village. Yeah, we get a 4, so we move there. So we go there, and we bring up this chart again and roll 2 dice. So I get a total of 3. Delayed, reduce proximity and endurance by 1, then move to any adjacent mapped hex. So actually, I used 1 extra dice here. Since I had an endurance of 5 before, I had to throw out a dice, so I'll only have 2 for rest. So let's move to an adjacent hex. We'll move to that one, which becomes jungle. Alright, so that was our movement phase. Stealth. We will fail, so our proximity goes down to 1. We're in trouble there. Proximity can never go up. I think I overdid that a little. I may lose the game because of it, but whatever. Alright. And then we do our rest phase. I don't think we passed rest. No, we didn't rest, so we lose 1 endurance. That's bad. Alright. So this turn coming up, we're only going to have 3 dice. This is not looking good. Okay, so let's map. We get a 3, starting at northernmost hex. Alright, and let's do our encounters. We get a 14. Is 14 do nothing? Oh, that's going to be a bad one. Flash flood. You may choose to avoid this by retreating to your previous hex or lose 2 endurance. I can't lose 2 endurance, so I'm going to retreat to the village hex. Do I get to... Yeah, it doesn't say you can only go to the village once. Alright, so let's roll on the village table again. A 3, that's delayed, reduce proximity endurance by 1, then move to any adjacent mapped hex. So my proximity went to 0, so I just got captured by the NVA. But anyhow, I didn't play that well, but you get the general idea of the game. Really what you want to get is number 64 through 66, like Dead VC, because this one you will find the map in one of his pouches and put it 3 away from you. So if you were here, it would be 1, 2, 3, and it would be an X, and it's a downed helicopter. So when you would move to this hex, it would be a crashed Huey, which is, let's see here, which is here, and you would find a flare gun. And once you move into that space, all the spaces around it become a field. Alright, and let me show you the flare gun rules here. If you're in open fields, you can force an encounter, find, and possibly win the game. So I looked online, there's what the author said is when you get the flare gun, you have to move before you can use it. So you'd move to an adjacent field, and then you would force the Huey gunship encounter, in which you fire your flare gun and you signal the slick, which picks you up and win. That's how I always win, is with that one. I don't think I've ever made it to the river yet, but I could be wrong. Anyhow, let's go to the review portion of the video now. 1972, The Lost Phantom. I like it. The price is right. It's free. You just need a printer to print the paper up and some pencils. And if you have one of these, you can use this to represent you, one of these old game pieces. And you just need 9 dice, preferably where one of them is a different color. It's fun to play and easy to play. He calls it medium complexity, but I think it's low complexity, at least compared to the complexity of the typical war game. It's fun. It's a little frustrating at times because most of the dice I have a habit of either rolling 1s or 6s, both of which are bad in this game. Usually in a game, either a 1 is bad or a 6 is bad. In this game, both of them are bad. Other than that, let's see here. Very thematic. Kind of feels like you're a guy trying to find your way out of the woods to civilization. So the theme is definitely good. We didn't get to see all the afflictions and stuff in here, but these all have different effects. And then there's inventory you can get that helps you. I would have liked to have seen probably more events, because it seems like most of the time when I roll for an event, no event occurs. However, when events do occur, they definitely do affect the game. Some are fantastic, some really screw you up. Yeah, I think this game could go to production quite easily. Just make a few changes, and there's a few holes in the rules where things aren't completely clear. But if he whoever the author is, took another look at the rules and kind of fixed them up and made everything crystal clear, and he could just come out with a pack of these pre-printed here, kind of like, you ever see like those notepads where you can just tear them off? I mean, that's all he would need to sell the game. That would be perfect. Or he could sell it where he has a dry erase sheet with this printed on it, and you could just use a dry erase marker. So, yeah, like I said, I like the game. Price is right. It's free, of course. Just a few minor tweaks it needs, and it would be able to go to production. I think it would be very successful. Really neat game. Survival games are difficult to make, like Avalon Hill Survival I didn't particularly like. I have a friend who has a homemade survival game he's been trying to get printed for a while now. It's called Wilderness Survival. That one's pretty good, but these are difficult games to make, but this is a really nice one. I like it. Anyhow, go online. I will put the link to Board Game Geek in the description for this video, where you can download this. Download it, play a bunch of games, have some fun. Thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, please click like on it, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel. And as always, have a good evening.